Tonight, a summit in Mexico. President Biden, Canada's Prime Minister, and the President of Mexico meet to take on immigration reform amid a surge of migrants at the U.S. southern border. This as the Justice Department reviews classified documents found in President Biden's former office. And the weather disaster rocking California.
The bad news is we're not out of it yet.
Set to turn even more deadly and destructive. And the Vice President in the spotlight.
Good morning, America!
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Immigration on the forefront as North American nations meet. Good evening and thanks for joining us from CBN Studio in Washington. I'm Caitlin Burke. The Biden administration takes its plan to curb illegal border crossings directly to decision makers. CBN News senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener has been following today's North American Leaders Summit in Mexico and joins us now with tonight's top story. Tara?
Caitlin, after wrapping up his first visit to the southern border in more than a decade, President Biden pointed out his new plan is designed to slow the illegal flow while making programs for legal migration more accessible. He also wants other countries in the region to share responsibility, cutting the numbers. Meetings involving President Biden, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau come as they all struggle to handle an influx of migrants while also cracking down on human smugglers. The Biden administration is hoping a virtual platform that will serve as a one-stop shop for migrants to find information about legal pathways either in the U.S., Mexico, or Canada, and the opening of a new resource center in southern Mexico will help. Biden's new plan also includes expelling migrants from Nicaragua, Venezuela, Haiti, and Cuba who cross the border illegally. The U.S. will reportedly accept 30,000 migrants a month from those four countries that have a U.S. sponsor. Critics, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, say it's too little, too late.
The president who caused the chaos on the border needed to be here. It just so happens he's 2 years and about $20 billion too late.
On Monday, a bipartisan group of senators also visited El Paso, which deals with 2,500 illegal crossings a day.
It's not fair for border communities like El Paso or in my home state in Arizona, like Yuma, to shoulder the burden of the federal government's failure to address this crisis.
The group is crafting its own legislative response to the crisis.
Some of this is obviously people fleeing violence and crime in their home countries. Other people are coming here for more nefarious purposes. We know the drugs that come across the border are a huge problem. 108,000 Americans died of drug overdoses last year.
Past efforts to pass major immigration reform have repeatedly stalled in Congress. And as for that virtual portal, administration officials say it is still being built and may not be unveiled for several months. Critics are skeptical about whether it will even discourage people from coming. Caitlin?
Tara, as President Biden wraps up that trip, a political headache awaits him back here in Washington. The Justice Department now reviewing a batch of classified documents found in the president's former office at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Attorney General Merrick Garland is asking a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney to review the situation. The revelation of the documents comes some 5 months after the FBI raided former President Trump's home in Florida, uncovering more than 100 classified documents, including some marked top secret. That discovery outraging Trump's critics and sparking calls he faced prosecution. The former president now weighing in on the Biden situation, asking, quote, when is the FBI going to raid the many homes of Joe Biden, perhaps even the White House? 10 documents from Biden's office are reportedly being reviewed. CNN reports they include information related to Ukraine, Iran, and the UK. Joining us now is Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections. Nathan, thanks for joining us on Faith Nation tonight. First off, President Biden called Trump's handling of classified documents irresponsible, and there are clear distinctions between the two cases. But could these documents complicate the Justice Department's consideration on whether to bring charges against Trump for his handling of classified material?
Well, first of all, Caitlin, my mind went to the politics. And the horse is kind of out of the barn, meaning that even though there are some differences between these two cases, in my mind, that it gives enough ammunition for Republicans and allies of President Trump to criticize Biden and Democrats as being hypocrites. I think the DOJ should investigate anybody or anything that's doing something wrong and make sure to get to the bottom of it. But I feel like it's gonna get lost on people quickly that there are some significant differences. One of the big differences is that in the case of these most recent Biden documents, his attorneys found them, alerted the archives, and sought to give them back. On the other hand, with former President Trump, it was more of a chore to get the documents back, and it was significantly different. But politically, it's just going to muddy the waters, and both sides are going to look like they did something wrong, even though I don't think it's really the same.
Right. Now, jumping around here a little bit, tonight the president rolled out his border plan in Mexico. Is it enough or too little too late?
Well, for Republicans, it's not going to be enough. I mean, we're here at the very beginning of this Congress where Republicans have just taken control of the House of Representatives. And I think Republicans are at the point they have to decide, do they want to make policy or do they want to make a point? And with this initial batch of legislation the House Republicans are putting forward, I think they want to make a point. And if they were already on the same page as President Biden on a huge domestic policy like the border, that would be shocking. So whatever the president comes up with specifically is not going to go far enough for Republicans. So the question is, as we move ahead over the next 2 years, can they come to some sort of agreement on what everyone agrees is a problem?
Now, we do know that House Republicans are in agreement over their rules package. It passed last night with only one no vote from a Republican. Is there any room for compromise on comprehensive immigration reform right now in Washington?
Well, Caitlin, I feel like we have to be optimistic at the initial stage, right? There's going to be plenty of time to be jaded and get pessimistic about what could get done. But let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt that both Republicans and Democrats, I think, agree that the situation at the border is not sustainable and that something needs to be done. A key question is going to be whether President Biden seeks re-election, because if he doesn't, then he's going to be looking more toward his legacy and less toward re-election, and that could cause him to make even more compromises with House Republicans. But, because the Congress is split and we have a Democratic president, this is going to have to look like legislation that both sides like part of it and don't like part of it.
All right, great insights as always. Nathan Gonzalez with Inside Elections. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Still ahead, as much of California faces the threat of flooding, a look at how churches are stepping up to help. Welcome back. Floodwaters are rising out west as relentless rains prompt evacuations up and down the Pacific coast. Flash flooding has killed at least 14 people in California, triggering evacuations as well as school and road closures across the state. CBN News correspondent Brody Carter has the latest on the dangerous weather. Brody, what brought on all this rain?
After 48 hours of rain, roughly 90% of California currently under a flood watch. All of this due to a weather event. It's called an atmospheric river storm. It's comparable to a river in the sky, dumping massive amounts of rain from the Pacific. And these events are known to be as destructive as a hurricane. More than a foot of rain has fallen in parts of California since Sunday, causing record flooding and extensive damage.
The bad news is we're not out of it yet.
President Biden declared an emergency there as forecasters warn to brace for more of this atmospheric river storm and storm cyclone system. Storms with long plumes of moisture stretching into the Pacific.
We need to get everyone out of the area to higher ground, to a place of safety.
Authorities north of Los Angeles in San Luis Obispo County say floodwaters swept a 5-year-old boy and his mother while in their truck. They rescued the mom, although her son still missing. In Santa Barbara, homes and major highways remain flooded after 6 inches of rain yesterday led to gushing rivers and more flooding on the way.
We're really kind of asking everybody in the county to shelter in place, as it were.
Lingering thunderstorms raise the risk of flash flooding and mudslides, especially in drought-stricken areas and land recovering from wildfires, where vegetation is less stable. An estimated 200,000 people had no electricity Tuesday, mostly in Santa Clara County.
For us, we've been out of power, just got it back on for only one day to lose it again. You know, we have our generator, but we lose heat, we lose hot water.
In the Sierra Mountains, snowpack is now more than 200% above normal for this date. The powerful storm dropped close to 10 inches of snow in the last 24 hours, with an estimated 18 to 36 inches still to come in the next day. It is certainly tragic to look at. Several more of these storms are forecasted in California throughout the week. Flooding the main concern, and as of news time, we did learn the search for that 5-year-old boy was deemed too dangerous for divers and had been called off. Caitlin, back to you.
Thanks, Brody. With so many under evacuation orders and so much destruction already, churches are working to help the displaced. Joining us now is Alan Cross, lead pastor of Petaluma Valley Baptist Church. Alan, what kind of weather are you experiencing there right now, and are you expecting things to get worse?
Hey, Caitlin, thank you for having me on. Yeah, we've just had day after day after day of rain, and in other parts of the country, people are used to that, but here we just don't get that much. And with the historic drought that we've been through, the ground hasn't really been ready to receive it. So it's just been storm after storm has come through, and we're getting a little bit of a lull today, which is good because the creeks and rivers are able to get some water out of the way. But we're expecting more starting again tomorrow, and really for the next 10 or 11 days, every day is forecast with storms coming through. So people are kind of changing plans and trying to figure out how to make it through this.
Just an unbelievable amount of rain. How are you preparing your church and your community for a possible weather emergency?
Right. Well, right now we're just checking on folks and touching base with people. We've had some flooding here. We're in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco, and with the rivers and creeks, there's been some road closures and flooding. So we've just been touching base with people. We haven't had anything yet here that's been in the homes. Of course, we would be aware of that if it happened, that we would help people. We have helped in the past with the fires that have come through here over the last several years, and we've been an evacuation center a few years ago, and we're on the list for that again if our community needs us. And so I think the main thing right now is that churches, as I was talking with pastors just this morning to check and see what they're doing, they're just standing ready to help and open up for evacuations if needed and checking on their folks. But it's kind of a touch and go thing where there will be some flooding in an area that will kind of pop up that's unexpected, and then it will go down and it will happen in other areas. So really the whole state is kind of just watching as we're under these flood warnings for creek beds that were dry and hillsides that had not received much rain at all are now in a place where the land is giving way. So we're all just watching on edge.
How can we be praying for your community and your state as you are going through this major event right now impacted by those storms?
You know, I think the main thing is just praying for people to be aware of their neighbors and to have compassion. That really is the role of the church, is to see people in need. You know, in your previous segment, you were talking about immigrants, and obviously we have a lot of immigrants in California, and a lot of people in need, connecting with others, and just being that refuge where we can join hands together as a community. And the church has a real important role in that. Whenever there is a disaster, whenever there's a problem, the church has an opportunity to minister, to help, and to just provide that compassion. So really praying for that our compassion would be aroused, and that we would do what we can, and that we would be able to help others, and that neighbors would be able to help each other. And you really see that people pull together whenever there are disasters and our problems here. And so I'm just praying for more of that awareness, especially coming out of the Christmas season.
Amen. Well, Alan, we are praying with you, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and update us on the situation there. Please stay safe.
Okay, thank you.
Abortion and the Biden administration, how the president's second in command has become a key voice in the pro-choice movement. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier in the show, House Republicans are focusing on multiple pro-life measures this week. One resolution would condemn the attacks on crisis pregnancy centers in the wake of the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Another would mandate doctors provide life-saving care for babies who survive abortion procedures. One of the bill's sponsors talked with CBN about how important the pro-life agenda will be for this Congress.
We genuinely believe in the sanctity of every human life, and our public policy ought to reflect that. In the wake of the Dobbs opinion, we have some adjustments to make to federal law. We regard the sanctity of every human life to be inviolate because our value is given to us by God, not the government, and so our policy should reflect that.
The House is set to bring some of the bills to the floor on Wednesday. From immigration to abortion, over the course of the Biden administration, Vice President Kamala Harris has had several high-profile assignments. But with great responsibility comes even greater criticism. As David Brody reports, some say the VP has failed on follow-through.
Good morning, America!
For Vice President Kamala Harris, it's been an eventful and rocky 2 years.
It is time to reassess our view of Kamala Harris.
Her first big task came as border czar to tackle the immigration crisis.
We have a secure border.
The reality, however, is it's anything but secure. According to Customs and Border Patrol, the number of migrants crossing the border in fiscal year 2021 amounted to the highest on record. Voters took note.
Do you think she's been a good border czar? I don't. It's really a joke, and everyone knows it.
Headlines screaming, "You call this secure?" And video of immigrants bust to cities like New York, Chicago, and D.C. haven't been good either. Earlier this year, after Texas Governor Greg Abbott dropped off some 50 illegal immigrants outside of her D.C. residence, critics called her slow to act or do much at all.
La frontera es cerrado or abierto?
Abierto. Former Department of Homeland Security Deputy Secretary Ken Cuccinelli says Harris's inaction is exactly the point.
This is the desire of the radical left. Eliminate our borders because America is not special to them. We're not unique. And part of the way they want to drag us down into the pack of the rest of the world is by eliminating our sovereignty, eliminating our borders. And the Biden administration has at every step done what the radical left wants them to do.
And speaking of that side of the political spectrum, Harris also took on the self-proclaimed role as point person on abortion. Headlines detail how she's become more aggressive in the fight over abortion in America, especially since Roe was overturned. Her tactics, however, have been seen as controversial by using faith to make her pro-choice argument.
You don't have to change your faith or abandon your faith or your deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. We are not asking anyone to compromise their beliefs or abandon their faith.
To support a woman's ability, not her government, but her, to make that decision does not require anyone to abandon their faith.
Tyron Rose Mandelberg of the Media Research Center says using faith as a sell for abortion is tough sledding.
Kamala Harris is just trying to justify abortion by using the Bible as a way of, furthering her claims. But abortion is completely antithetical to the Bible's teachings. In the Bible, we see the Lord says, "You knit me together in my mother's womb." So in your mother's womb, that's the moment of conception. God knew that we were going to be created from the moment of conception.
In addition to this being seen as an anti-biblical view of the issue, Mandelberg adds the danger is that many Christians might buy into the argument, given the power of Harris's position.
We have all of these Christians, hundreds of millions of people voting for abortion because they think that, since Kamala Harris said abortion and the Bible work together, then you've got all of those millions of Christians who are now going to vote for abortion because they think that it's biblical. So this is just a political ploy, and just honestly, it's propaganda.
As for the vice president, criticism isn't limited to abortion and immigration, as she's made some flubs on the international stage as well.
I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank and our NATO allies.
and what is at stake at this very moment.
She's also drawn unflattering headlines for some head-scratching comments that conservatives say prove Harris isn't prepared or equipped for the job at hand.
Space, it affects us all, and it connects us all. Who doesn't love a yellow school bus, right? Can you raise your hand if you love a yellow school bus, right? Just, there's something about and most of us, many of us went to school on the yellow school bus, right?
Longtime conservative icon George Will keeps track of what he sees as the VP's shortcomings, writing an op-ed entitled, "For the Good of the Country, Biden and Harris Should Bow Out of the 2024 Election." Will goes on to write, quote, "Enough. She sounds like someone giving a book report on a book she has not read. Her style betrays a self-satisfied exaggeration of her aptitudes. Lacking natural talent, she needs to prepare, but evidently doesn't. Complacency and arrogance make a ruinous compound." It's pretty clear reviews for Harris's first 2 years haven't been great. Many will be watching and waiting to see how the Biden administration positions her high-profile workload over the next 2 years, especially as talk of a re-election campaign gets louder. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, the payday of a lifetime thanks to the generosity of strangers. We explain next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, $100,000. That's how much a GoFundMe campaign just raised to help an 82-year-old Walmart worker finally retire. Customer Rory McCarty felt called by God to take action after meeting Butch Marion on the checkout line. In a TikTok video, you can hear McCarty immediately telling the Navy veteran about a viral campaign that helped someone else in his shoes.
And now she's got another one going, and she just raised over $50,000 in 4 days for another 82-year-old. Yeah. Now imagine that someone raised that kind of money for you.
With Marion's blessing, McCarty started a fundraiser for him in December, and donations started pouring in. On Wednesday, the 82-year-old clocked out for the last time with a $100,000 check in hand. The Good Samaritan, McCarty, tells CBN News his Christian faith inspired him to change someone's life for the better. And it sounds like that is exactly what he did. Congratulations, Butch. I hope you enjoy your well-earned retirement. That's going to do it for us tonight on Faith Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.